like they said, in 2013, I decided to get a divorce. And after my divorce, I was hungry, I was thirsty, I was all of the feelings. I needed all of it. So in 2013, like the only game in town back then, I think, was OkCupid, so that's what I joined. And this is back in the day when you could just do it on your laptop. There were no apps yet. And I went fully in, and I approached dating because I didn't want anything serious. I didn't want to be tied down. I just wanted to meet people. I wanted to meet new people. I was in a very traditional monogamous relationship. I am not a very traditional monogamous person, so I needed different. So I approached game show dating much like a game show host, always wondering, what's behind door number 1? What's behind door number 52? You know, weeks into this, I dated voraciously and with great excitement. Now, we all know with game shows, behind certain doors there are gag gifts. So let's get to those before we get to the prizes, shall we? Let's talk about the gag gifts, right? I spent 7 years doing this, let me just say that. So the gag gifts were plentiful. I had a house filled with gag gifts. The first gag gift was Chad. Chad took me out on this very elaborate, creative date after he had come back from hiking the Appalachian Trail, supposedly. Following this elaborate, creative date, he pulled a Sam's Club Econo-sized box of condoms out of the trunk of his car and slyly suggested, I thought we could use these. Like, how much sex did you think we were gonna have in one night? There was also Jared, who was very proud of himself for being a lawyer. It was so cute that he talked about it during his around hour-long monologue, which is as far as I would let him go at the bar. Good for you, Jared, for being such a lawyer and making it so far. I got to say like literally nothing about myself during that conversation. There was Trey, who took me to a Sixers game with incredible seats. Like, I'm talking like 3 or 4 rows back from courtside, right? At one point in the beginning of the game, he took off. I thought he went to use the bathroom. He said like nothing. He came back with an armload of snacks and beverages from concession, offered me nothing, and never asked me if I wanted to share. So he just sat there like munching and drinking and yelling profanities at the opposing team. Yeah, that was fun. There was also Chris, who I dated for a month. We had some really good sex, like that's hard to quit, right? Even though every morning after he spent the night, he helped himself to the food in my kitchen and never once asked me if I wanted anything from my own kitchen for breakfast. So those were the gag gifts, just some of them. I could go on and on and on, but I only have 5 minutes here. Let's get to the prizes though, right? Because game shows, there are both. Some of the prizes are friends that I still have to this day, right? There was a romantic connection and we dated for a little while and it kind of fizzled out. But we decided to be adults about it, no hurt feelings, no harm, no foul. We moved on. I still talk to these people and hang out with these people. One of them is one of my closest friends still to this day. In fact, on Tinder, when that was finally a thing, again, I did this for 7 years, I happened to meet my neighbor, who is also a friend. We matched on Tinder, and over our first conversation, we realized that we lived 2 blocks away from our favorite Mexican restaurant in our neighborhood. We've been hanging out ever since and friendly ever since. Well, during that 7-year period, I also got mixed up with a real life friend. And what this person did to me that I will not get into because it doesn't fall along the lines of the online dating story was absolutely devastating. Let's just say that after that I was completely gutted. I didn't trust anybody. I couldn't go back out there and have fun anymore. I was brokenhearted and I was just emotionally wrecked. So for 3 years, I dated therapy. I put myself on a self-imposed dating hiatus. At the time, I didn't know how long it was gonna take. I was like, listen, I just gotta do this thing. I gotta work on myself. This has been partially a train wreck, partially a good time. It's been a lot of things. 7 years is a long time to be doing this, right? So I dated therapy, and then like 3 years went by, we had a whole pandemic, all of that, and in March of 2023, just last year, I'm sitting on my couch, I'm having coffee, nothing real interesting is going on. I didn't feel lonely. I didn't even feel twinges of like, hey, I think I'm gonna get back out there. Something just hit me like, you know what, I'm gonna download the OkCupid app and I'm gonna re-up my profile. But this time, I'm gonna be honest about what I want, because at that point, I knew my wants, I knew my needs, I knew my deal breakers, my likes, my dislikes, I knew about me, right? So I wrote a very honest profile. In that profile, it had humor, it had pop culture references, it had everything that I wanted it to have, including those likes, dislikes, and deal breakers. I was gonna go out there and I was gonna be honest, not just with myself, but the people who I met this time. And I was still gonna play it like a game show, only I was gonna do it more strategically. So after a few days went by, I had a collection of messages in my inbox, as we women get. And I went through the messages, I ignored the ones that were just like, hey, what's up, how you doing, you know? Didn't respond to those. There were some guys who started genuine conversation. I went back and forth with a lot of them. Those fizzled out, but 2 stuck around. And the first one that I decided to go on my first date with in 3 years was Brennan. And the moment I met Brennan over coffee, I immediately liked him. We sat in that coffee shop. We had coffee for 3 hours. Unintentionally. It felt like 3 hours just flew by. The only reason why I cut our conversation off was because I had plans that afternoon with a friend. At the time, I was scared. And I said to him, you know, I think we'd be really good friends. Let's keep hanging out. So we kept hanging out. Now, as anyone who's ever gone through a rehabilitative experience understands, is that first is the backslide. So the second guy in my inbox was Andy. And I dated Andy, and Andy was more of the same from the Doors with the gag gifts, so that didn't last very long. I took a couple more months to get my head on straight, and during that time, Brennan and I had continued to hang out. And during one of our hangout sessions, I asked him if he wanted to come back to my place. And we've been a couple ever since. Aww. He is incredibly sweet. I can't say enough things about him. I do not want to publicly embarrass him, but we are very happy. And what I can tell you, the differences between this relationship and all of my other relationships is it's chill. There's no drama. There are no highs and lows. That spark that they all talk about, I'm sure it exists. But a lot of that spark that I've experienced in the past is crazy, both on my part and the other person's part, right? So I have no sage wisdom to impart upon you as a woman who like Tasmanian devil spun her way around Philadelphia, hopping from bar to bar and restaurant to restaurant with like a million different people over a 7-year period. But what I will tell you is this. Don't date for sex. Don't date because you need to be loved. Don't date for loneliness, right? Sure, those are all human needs, and I'm not shaming or faulting anybody for dating for those reasons. Date for friendship, because that is the foundation for anything. The second piece of learned wisdom, I guess you could call it, that I'll impart upon all of you is don't date to impress them. Date to find the healthy relationship that you deserve behind a door that you both decide to keep open. Thank you very much.